in chess, it is important to be thinking of our moves in advance. If we wait for our opponent to make a move and then just respond to it, this is called reactionary chess. And it's kind of like playing without a game plan. We are just allowing our opponent to play while we act as a bystander and just respond to what they do. Now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some people refer to that martial art as being human chess. Whether or not you agree with that description of it, it is important to be thinking of moves ahead of time. So Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and chess are very similar in that way. In today's video, we will be discussing what I consider to be the easiest way to start linking moves together in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Only when we can start linking our moves together is it possible for us to be doing things in advance, to be planning things out. The way in which we are linking our moves together, and for the purposes of this video, is by discussing submission holds. Now with submission holds, if we place our opponent in one, they're almost always going to respond in one of two ways. They're going to either come forward and try and stack us in order to defend a submission hold, or they're going to move backwards. It's important to note that submission holds are, for the most part, reliant on tightness, being tight to our opponent in order to isolate a limb. Now our opponents can either smother this tightness or just try to get away from it and out of this situation. I would argue that during the initial phases of a submission hold, it's much more common for someone to try and escape by pulling away. If we know that someone is going to be pulling away, then it's much easier to develop a move we can do afterwards. So for instance, we can look to create a further submission attempt if they pull away. We could look to sweep them, or we could look to escape from a dominant position that they might have. A really good one for this, and that one that kind of applies for the modern times, is that if someone is in the side control position, what we are seeing these days is that people will look to attack with a buggy choke. Now with our buggy choke, it might or might not be an effective means for us, but our opponent is almost always going to be looking to pull away and get out of that situation. And because they are looking to pull away, then since we're on bottom of side, we can get into that space that they're freeing up and look to reestablish like a guard or maybe an underhook and look to kind of sweep. But we have options because we know that they're almost always going to be looking to pull away. Even if our opponents are looking to stack into us though, we can still plan for that outcome too. But the point is that because we are making an attack, their options are limited. They can't just ignore this submission hold, as that will result in them either tapping out or being down either a limb or going unconscious if it's a chokehold. So they have to respond, and their options of forming this response are limited. It's also important to know that not every submission attempt you make on someone needs to be legitimate. Like, this will be our last point, but if I make a submission movement on someone and this causes them an especially big reaction, then it gives me like some insight into their psychology. So maybe I'm in a competitive situation and I make the initial grab for a kimura and they just pull away in a big way. This lets me know that they are especially twitchy and they might be nervous about this event. This is really good information for us because we now can time these big reactions and make things even easier for us. Know that with our submission attempts, they require energy. So if I can play with someone and make just the smallest attempts at submissions without committing too much, and they have reactions on their end, then I don't have to try as hard to impose my game, and I can make things a lot easier for myself. But these have been my thoughts on this topic, and I hope you have liked this video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and also stay tuned for more content. But take care.